There's this powerful idea, born way back in the mid-20th century, that somehow connects the chemistry inside our brains to the arguments happening in our universities, all the way up to the machinery of our politics. It's this one single concept that explains how all kinds of systems, from the tiniest to the absolutely massive, are in a constant fight for order in a universe that just loves chaos. So let's dive into it.
And this quote from mathematician Norbert Wiener, it really gets to the heart of it all. He saw all of life, all of order itself, as this desperate, constant struggle. We're fighting against this massive universal current that's always pulling everything and everyone back toward chaos. In his words, we're not just living, we are perpetually swimming upstream. Now, there's a scientific name for that great torrent of disorganization. It's called entropy, and it's a fundamental law of physics. I mean, just think about your bedroom. It doesn't magically clean itself, right? It naturally gets messier over time. Well, that's entropy in action. The universe's default setting is this relentless slide toward messiness and decay. And every living thing, every society, every idea is in a constant battle against it. So, the big question is, how do we swim upstream? How do we fight back? Well, Wiener gave our entire toolkit a name: cybernetics. It's the science of communication and control. It's all about how systems, whether we're talking about a person, a society, or a computer, use information and feedback loops to keep themselves in check, to maintain some semblance of order, and to push back against that inevitable slide into total chaos.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's start with maybe the most complex system we know of, the human brain. We're going to look at how we try to control it using these very principles.
So what happens when the brain's communication system goes completely haywire, like in cases of psychosis? We step in and intervene directly. And psychopharmacology is a perfect example of cybernetic control. We literally introduce chemicals that act like a new set of instructions, deliberately hacking the brain's own signaling pathways to try and bring back some order.
But this just goes to show you that control is never, ever perfect. It's always a series of trade-offs. The first generation of antipsychotics, for instance, they worked by blocking dopamine, and that helped with the psychosis, but it often caused these really severe movement disorders. So then came the second generation drugs, which blocked serotonin too, and that reduced the movement issues, which was great, but the trade-off, a much higher risk of metabolic problems. See? Each one is just a different control strategy, a different attempt to find a balance in the incredibly delicate system of the brain. Okay, so that's all external chemical control. But here's the thing. We apply these exact same principles internally, every single day, anytime we try to regulate our own emotions. And this is exactly what happens when that self-regulation fails. You've probably heard of an amygdala hijack. It's basically the system just giving in to emotional entropy. A perceived threat, real or not, causes your emotional brain to completely seize control before your rational brain can even get a word in. Stress hormones flood your body and boom, your executive function is just offline. That conscious effort you make to calm down, that's literally you trying to reboot the feedback loop and reestablish order in the system.
So, this raises a huge question. If we are constantly engineering these little control systems for a single human mind, what happens when we scale that up? What happens when we try to apply those same cybernetic principles to an entire group of people, to a whole society?
All right, let's take it up a level. We're going to scale up from the individual to a university and look at this timeless debate. How do you control the flow of ideas within that system? On one side of the argument, you have someone like Dr. Harold Taylor. He was all for a decentralized control system. From his point of view, a healthy university finds order through open communication and peer review. The feedback, the control, it comes from colleagues, not from some top-down authority filtering which ideas are okay and which aren't.
But then, on the other side, you've got William F. Buckley Jr., who argued for the exact opposite, a much more centralized control. He believed that some ideas are just so disruptive, so dangerous to the system, that they have to be actively filtered out by an administration to protect the university's core mission.
And this, right here, is the central cybernetic question of their entire debate. What are the rules of the system? Who gets to decide which ideas are acceptable and which are not? And maybe most importantly, who gets to write the code that governs the entire conversation?
So now let's scale this whole thing up one last time. We're going from the university to the state. And we're going to see what happens when cybernetics is used to try and control an entire population.
This list comes from a proposed government document laying out indicators of violence. But look really closely at what they are. They're not actions, they're beliefs. This is the input data for a massive, state-level control system, a system designed to flag potential threats based on, well, on nothing more than ideology.
Let's just call this what it is. When a person's beliefs become the criteria for surveillance, when being anti-capitalist, for example, is enough to put you on some kind of watch list, the system isn't monitoring actions anymore. It has started to monitor thought itself.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Norbert Wiener, the guy who basically invented cybernetics, he saw this coming, all the way back in 1947. He was terrified that the very science he created to help us understand control would inevitably be used to build tools for an unprecedented concentration of power.
So let's take a step back and really consider the profound choice this science has left us with. This is the really incredible and kind of scary duality of cybernetics. The exact same principles of feedback and control can be used to rebalance the chemistry in a single suffering brain, or they can be scaled up to build a machine that monitors the thoughts of an entire nation. The science itself, it's neutral. Its application, well, that's everything.
And so we're left with the same exact question that Wiener posed in his most famous book. We have the tools. We understand the science of control better than any generation before us. The only question that's left, the one we all have to answer, is this: what will be our human use of human beings?